Hello everybody, I'm Passerite, and this is an Any Unrestricted run of Stray. So, Any Unrestricted means that we'll be using all of the glitches at our disposal in the game to go fast. And as you probably know already about the game, this is catJAM. We are a cat, and once this opening cutscene stops, we will take control of the cat. And the cat's never given a name in the game. And I'm of the opinion that you should name your cat. Like, each individual player should name their cat. So my cat's name is Sheila, which means she's a girl. And so this is Sheila. She's coming right into frame at the bottom there. And so the first thing that you have to do is greet all of your friends, all of these other 3 cats. And you have to play with all of them. And something you might notice based on the prompts that are popping up right now is that I am interacting with the scroll wheel, and that's actually an important piece of tech for the game, is which things are bound to the scroll wheel. And so interact is one of them, and I actually do different bindings for the different categories. So in any %, I use interact and help on the scroll wheel, and in 100% I use interact and meow on the scroll wheel, and I can talk a little bit more about those differences later. But for right now, the first thing that's going to come up, the first major skip, is called nap skip. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to go to sleep and then wake up to a cutscene. But if you wait for that prompt to sleep and then walk up the wall before activating it, the cat will get stuck circling and will never go to sleep. And so when that happens, the game doesn't transition properly into the cutscene, and it's just completely skipped. So once this black screen is gone, the cat is going to be alone at the top here. You're supposed to have a cutscene where all the cats are climbing down, but you're alone at the top. And because of this, you can do some glitches to get out of bounds here, and then there's a setup to get back in bounds. So now we're back in bounds, and we can continue the game like normal. And so I already talked about some of the binding differences between any % and 100%. The main difference in like how the category is structured in any %, this with the current routing of any %, you actually collect no memories and no badges. In 100%, you collect all of them, which is 27 memories and 6 badges. So that's the major difference of what you are and are not seeing. And so with 100%, you actually get to do some more glitches than you do in any %. But any %, importantly, you can skip all of the cutscenes that have the major story points, because you can do a cutscene skip and just completely skip them. And you can't do that in 100% because you get memories during those cutscenes. So, if you want to see the least amount of story that you possibly can, any % is the way to go. And so that's actually why the bindings are different. The bindings that I use for any % and 100% are different, because for any %, you have to have help bound to the scroll wheel in order to get the cutscene skips for those memory cutscenes. But since we don't do the memory cutscene skips in 100%, I just bind it to meow, because that is super useful for getting the enemies off of you. And so there is some time loss to those enemies in any % now that we no longer bind to the scroll wheel. Anyways, this is the really sad cutscene. You can look away. I usually do. It's a rough one, and it's right at the beginning. But this is the whole point, the whole reason that we have the story of Stray, because this cat fell, and now we have to help the cat get out of here. We have to help the cat reunite with their friends. And at first it seems like your kitty's hurt, but it's okay because cats are kind of magic. We'll see after this cutscene. This kitty's magic. My own cat's in the background asking for things. We gave her some buttons for different words, and so she really likes to press food as soon as she knows that I'm doing something. So if I start stream, if I start talking to somebody on a Zoom call, if I start recording this, she knows. But anyways, that cutscene's over. So now our kitty just gives themselves a little lick. And now we're good. This cat has magic saliva, I promise. And so now we're out of that first part, and now we get to Dead City. And it's called that because it is a city, but it's very abandoned. And so this is where we first see those enemies that are called Zurks. And if you play the game casually, and especially if you play more of it and actually see the cutscenes and stuff, you start to learn about the Zurks and what they are and why they exist and stuff like that. But in general, I mean, you can just know they're very dangerous. They will kill you. They also kill the robots and stuff that live here. And so we want to avoid them. And now because we're a cat, we can only do cat things. Stray's really cool because you're a cat the whole time. Like you can't do things that a cat can't do. So you get to knock stuff off, you get to pick stuff up, but you don't do it in a way that a cat can't. So here we are, we're knocking a paint bucket off, and of course it's very useful to knock things over. So we broke that window and could get in here. And now we're about to get the real introduction to the Zurks. So these enemies here, you can see them attacking a robot. And if you're playing this casually, you probably interacted with the robot, but you don't have to, so we skipped that for the speedrun. And now, here's the cutscene where we are confronted by the Zurks for the first time, because they haven't attacked us before. But there's an awful lot of them. And so, we're gonna run away. And so this is where, if you can bind Meow to the scroll wheel, it's really great, because Meow is the button that shakes them off. But for this category, I don't do that. And so you have to just mash if you don't bind it to the scroll wheel. Mash the Meow button. And so it's a little time loss, but it doesn't, like, kill the run or anything, so it's a trade-off. And if you played this and tried to get all the achievements, there is an achievement for getting through this whole section without having a single Zurk catch you. It is very hard to do. It's one of the hardest achievements. And I definitely spent a long time trying to do it. This has been pretty good. Not too many Zurks attached. And so now we're safe. And so, oh, you can fall in this game. You can't fall off, but you will fall and have to claw your way back up, and that is a little slower, unfortunately. And you can't fall because, if you notice, every single thing that you jump on, you have to get a prompt to jump on it. So it has to be possible for you to jump on it before you can even try to. And so, in some ways that makes it harder to break the game. You can't jump places you're not supposed to, but don't worry, we've still found plenty of ways to break the game. And so the rest of this section is just platforming. And so this is about getting the fastest path. to get places, because there's usually multiple alternate options that you can use to get to the place you're supposed to get to. Which, I mean, even though you only have certain places you can jump to, it does make it so you have choices, and you really can jump pretty much anywhere that you think you want to jump to. And now, as a cat, we're gonna break stuff, because that's what cats do best. Gonna break this fan, and now we're gonna be able to jump into the next part. The next chapter is the flat. And this is where we meet our little robot friend. But first, we're a cat. We have to walk on the keyboard, of course. And so you can walk across it, you can get different keys. I'm just standing because that's faster. And then we can get off here and run to the door that's going to open now. And so the next part is to grab all these batteries here. And these can be annoying because they do not want to connect properly, but that's okay. I guess I do have to say this is a very uncat-like thing. This cat is putting things away. That's not something that cats usually do. Maybe I shouldn't say that it's immersive as a cat. My cats certainly never put things away. But during this cutscene here, you can actually move and jump on things, so you can get up here a lot faster. And knock this off, and then this is our robot friend. We're gonna pick him up. This is B12. So now there's this nice cutscene where we get to meet B12 for the first time. There's actually not a lot of cutscenes that we watch, so I guess this would be a great time for donations since we skip a lot of the other ones. Which I guess I could say, hey, 100% offers more chances for donations. And so now, the part that's coming up is one of my favorite, if not my favorite part in the whole game. Because a harness is put on the cat, and the cat just flops. And this is exactly what my cat does when I put a harness on him. He flops over. He does not think he could ever move again. But it's okay, this cat gets used to it really fast. A lot faster than my cat. And so now we're about to leave, and there is a code here. And it's always the same code, luckily. So you don't have to go and find the code every time. You can just put it in. And then we go, and we get to ride another bucket. And you can spin in this bucket, which is kind of fun to do. But it's not going to be... Actually, how many more buckets are there? There's... I guess we skip a lot of buckets since this is any percent now that I'm thinking about it. But there's at least one more bucket, don't worry. And so that was a cutscene skip right there. You're supposed to do a cutscene where you get this postcard. Instead, you do the cutscene skip and grab the postcard physically. Like, press the button to grab it instead of it just handing it to you. And the way that cutscene skips work, B12 normally comes out and does dialogue during the cutscene. But if you have B12 out already and have him do the help dialogue at the same time that you're supposed to start the cutscene, it will not do the cutscene at all and will just do the help dialogue. So I kind of glossed over it with that one, but there's going to be more of them, and I'll, explain a little bit better what's happening on the next ones that come up. And we've made it to the slums. So this is where we see all the robots for the first time. And so there are no human inhabitants left in the city, it's just robots. And if you play more of the story, you can kind of, you know, learn more about what happened. I won't spoil too much here, but these are the inhabitants of the city. And the guy with the stick, he's the guardian. And there's a way to get him glitched so that he closes the door early. And that's what actually happened. He's supposed to be pushing that door down, but he's not. He's already crouched. And because you got him to do that early, you can actually get him to smile by meowing here. He's not supposed to smile at you. He's actually concerned and terrified that the whole city is about to, like, be killed by Zerks. But through a glitch, we're able to get him to smile during this cutscene because he, I guess, comes out of the cutscene state early or something. I'm not sure. It doesn't save any time. It's just funny. And now he's going to sound the all clear because he sees the cat and he says, "This isn't a Zerk. This is not going to hurt us. It was a false alarm." And so you're supposed to go on a whole journey in the slums and do a bunch of stuff, and we're going to do none of it. We're going to do none of the story. And instead, we're going to do a trick called sleep paralysis to get out of bounds and load the sewers. And so normally, what you're supposed to do is do the slums, rooftops, slums 2, dead end, and then get to sewers. But we're going to skip all of that and go straight to sewers. So this is sleep paralysis. I'm doing a very specific setup here to get on the right subpixel. And so I know I'm on the right subpixel when the cat does a certain type of movement. Once I'm on the right subpixel, I align the camera just right. Oh. And it is possible to get stuck in the bed. So when that happens, we're going to try again. So again, get on the right subpixel. Just like that. Perfect. And then align the camera. And then jump off. And once you're off, you can clip out of the wall, and you're in this really weird state. Collision gets weird. You kind of go through the floor sometimes like this. And like I said, we're going to use this to skip 4 chapters. So instead of doing all the stuff that you need to get to do to unlock the sewers, you can run under here, and then this will force the sewers area to load. And you do have to be careful here. It's possible to fall out of bounds. It's possible to have everything unload underneath you. Like, you saw it unload like that. If you pause, it'll unload and reload. But if you don't pause, sometimes it's possible to just fall while it's loading, and then you just... It's bad. In that case, I did fall through, but I got the checkpoint, so everything's fine. Once you get the checkpoint for sewers, the game thinks you've unlocked sewers. The reason that you have to quit and go back to the start is because the game thinks you've unlocked sewers, but the game's very confused about what's going on. So by reloading the chapter, then you can make everything work properly. Otherwise, you get over here and Momo's coat isn't even on him. It's like floating in the air, and it gets all weird. That's Momo, by the way. We didn't meet Momo normally. You're supposed to go... After you do the Guardian, you're supposed to go and find Momo. Momo's going to tell you to find his friend's journals, because he's a member of the Outsiders. The Outsiders want to get outside of the city. And there's 4 Outsiders, and so he tells you to go get their journals. And once you do that, then he wants to contact them, and he sends you out into the rooftops to fix the transceiver, the radio tower thing. And that's rooftops. Once you fix that, you go back to slums again, and then this is where you do an entire quest for Seamus. Seamus doesn't want you to go outside the city because his dad left the city, and now you can't, or now he hasn't seen his dad again. But you convince Seamus that his dad is out there somewhere. That's slums 2. And then Dead End is where you go and find his dad, and that's where you get this fancy purple light that you saw me using there. It's the defluxer, and that can kill Zerks. We can now kill Zerks. And now here we are at the sewers. And that's a really quick version of all the different stuff you're supposed to do between Slums 1 and Sewers, but instead we just go straight to Sewers. And so the Sewers, you mostly just sit on a raft and don't do anything, because you have to wait for Momo to push you far enough for you to do anything. But this is one part where we have to go and hit this lever to let Momo through. And the deflector is really nice, and it'll kill all these Zergs. You can't use it for too long, though, because it'll overload. But now we're on the raft again, and now again we have to wait. So really, these parts on the raft are a great time for donations. I guess something I can talk about here is if you see my input display, I am using a controller and a mouse. And so the controller has some benefits, and the mouse obviously has a lot of benefits with the scroll wheel. So I combine controller and mouse, and there's some other runners that do that too. Just so you get the best of both worlds. You can also run on keyboard and mouse. I'm useless on keyboard, so I use the controller. And so here we go. Now what's happening here is the door won't open, so Momo has to open it manually, but because he's pulling it open, then he can't also get through the door. So he tells you to go on without him, and he tells you to tell the other outsiders that he tried. Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to find the other two outsiders who did get away from the city. Because Momo is one outsider, and Seamus's dad, Doc, is the second outsider. And now two of them have made it successfully outside. I shouldn't say outside the city. They've made it outside the slums. As far as I know, nobody's made it outside the city. Until we come along. But they make it further towards getting outside the city. And so at one point I think there was travel between the slums and the other parts. People were able to travel more freely. But it's been pretty locked down for a while. Because there's the slums, and then we're going to get to Ant Village, and then we're going to get to Midtown. And that's okay. This part's not a bad place to die because it just puts you right back by the lever. And these are all Zerk eggs. They do hatch if you spend too much time around them, which can be a little nerve-wracking. And so, in this next part, there is a trick that you can do. In a marathon setting, I would attempt it just cause. It's got about a 60 or 70% chance, so it can be a pain to get in runs until you really need it. But it's a fun trick, and so I would definitely show it off here. It's called Water Run, And the way that it works is when you have... the game has a probe that is constantly following the cat to check if there is ground underneath the cat. But the way water run works is by using a weird teleporting property. You get the probe stuck where the cat is not. And so it's called water run because it lets you run under the water. And so that lets you run under the water and underneath this gate without having to open everything up. But like I said, it's like 60-70% chance of getting it, which can be frustrating. And so this is the cutscene where we finally learn a little bit more about the Zurks. They're kind of terrifying. And so here B12 is using the defluxer. But he burns himself out trying to save the cat. So we gotta grab him and we gotta run. And we don't have the defluxer anymore. So we just have to avoid all these Zurks as best as we can. This part can be annoying because sometimes you can just get Zurks that reach you out of nowhere. Like, you don't normally get hit there, but suddenly they do. Here we are, though. We've made it through. Now we have to wake up B12. Oh, the other thing. I haven't talked about this yet. The reason that the dialogue moves so fast, faster than you can even read it, is because the other thing that we bind to the scroll wheel is dialogue. Except dialogue... the way that the game works is it separates the, like, menus binds from the game binds. Like, the game binds are on top in the settings and the menu binds are underneath. So because of that, you can have scroll bound to 3 things. You can have scroll up bound to 1 thing and scroll down bound to 1 thing. And that's a cutscene skip right there. So there's supposed to be a cutscene here. Instead we activated B12 and that allows us to skip that cutscene, and also you have to do it again up here, otherwise you might get a soft lock, because you're supposed to get a second dialogue option up there. And now we're going to get one more cutscene here. And this one we can't skip. But that's okay. It'll be over fast. But like I was saying, you can bind scroll up and scroll down to something in gameplay. And then you can also bind scroll up and scroll down to something in the menuing settings. So you can have it bound to interact and help when you're just moving around the world, and then you can also have it bound to advancing the text when you're in any kind of menu. And so that was Balthazar. He was the third outsider, and he tells us to go on and find Clementine because she made it to Midtown. And he gives us a picture of Clementine that includes her address, so we're going to go find her. And there's going to be another cutscene skip right here at the beginning of Midtown. And so, to talk about this one a little bit more in advance, the way that it works, any cutscene skip, you have to activate it at just the right point so that you're pressing help when you cross the dialogue point. So that's at the top of these steps here, just like that. And you know that you get it because usually B12 will make the noise twice, like you've heard for all of them. And the reason that it has to be on scroll wheel, and actually it's not even just scroll wheel, the reason that it has to be a specific type of scroll. It has to be a mouse that has infinite scroll, which is also called hyper scroll or unlocked scroll wheel, any of those things. Basically where the mouse just keeps scrolling. that really helps with this trick with the cutscene skips because it inputs it so fast that you're getting it at pretty much every frame. And now we're on to the next trick. This is called hat skip or cat in the hat skip. You can see I'm doing spins against the grate here because the goal is to get the cat just barely into that next room so that you can hit the trigger for the stick there. You're supposed to be able to knock the stick down from inside. Just like that. And so because you're outside, the game puts you inside then to knock over the stick, and it lets you in, and then you can get out. And you're able to steal this hat here. The hat is very important. And so now we can keep going. We're going to go find Clementine. And here she is. And she is very concerned to see something in her house because she is a wanted criminal right now. You actually pass some signs that say that she's wanted. And so she sends you off to talk to Blazer. Blazer's going to help us get into the factory because we need to steal something from the factory. So what you're supposed to do is talk to Blazer, and he tells you that he needs a disguise. But we already know what disguise he needs, so we're going to grab that first. And the first step of that is breaking all these cameras. Because the sentinels and the police here, they watch on these cameras, and I guess they're stopping these robots from dancing down here, and they want to dance. So they ask us to help with the cameras. And as a reward, we're going to get a mixtape, which is very important for the next part. So we already stole the hat. The hat is part of the disguise, and the other thing that we need is a work arrest. And so we're going to go and put this mixtape on in the clothing shop. And it's going to cause such a disturbance that we can go and steal the work arrest. And you can actually see, you got a glimpse of it there. That was Momo's jacket, the big long flamingo coat. So I don't know, I think Momo's really stylish. When I was in the slums, I was like, why is Momo the only one dressed this way? But then you get to Midtown, and it looks like it's some high-end clothes. So anyways, Blazer gets dressed up. We're gonna hide in a box because we're a cat, and we fit in boxes. Actually, anytime you see a box in this game, anytime you see one of these boxes, you can hide in it. It's pretty great. And so now Blazer's gonna sneak us into the factory. And the reason that we're going into the factory is because the factory is powered by a very powerful battery, and we need that if we're going to help Clementine, because Clementine wants to get further than Midtown. She wants to get all the way to the control room. And to do that, we need to activate the subway. And to activate the subway, it needs to be powered. And so now we can run, and this is where the run gets dangerous, because all of these things that are floating, they're called sentinels. And if they see you, they'll lock onto you, and if they hit you, you die. It's very unforgiving. So we're going to try to run through them as fast as possible to not get hit. Meowing does attract them, but luckily, usually, unless you're meowing, you can run past them when they're not looking at you and they don't notice. And so since this is any percent, we can skip like all the different side stuff in Factory. We can just run to the end here. And you want to get in the barrel because the barrel lets you go through these lasers. And then to get the battery, it's in the middle here, but you have to lower it enough to be able to reach it. And so to do that, you have to move all these little robots around so that they're on the pressure pads. And so with that, we can grab the battery and then leave. Grabbing the battery does shut a lot of things down, but I guess there's some emergency power or something, because there are still lights on. But because we shut everything down, it also shuts off the lasers that were keeping us from leaving. See, there was another bucket. There it is. Now that we're here, we can head back to Clementine's to give her the battery. And now everything around Clementine's is roped off. And there's a bunch of sentinels here, so we're going to try not to get shot by them. And now we get to try to find her, but she's not here. So she leaves a note that has some clues to her whereabouts. But we have to find the clues that are scattered around her apartments. The note tells us where to look, and then we have to look there to figure out where she is. So each little hint gives us another piece of it. And there's 4 of them, so this is the 3rd one. And up here's the 4th one. And so now we know that she's with Blazer in the club. So we're gonna go to the club to find her. And this sentinel can be really annoying because if it sees you there and you just keep going, it will kill you. So you have to run back so that you're against the wall so that it doesn't see you. For some reason it doesn't see you there. I'm not sure why. I'm not complaining though. So anyways, now we're going to go to the club, except we're not actually going to go to the club because this is any percent and we do not go to the club. Even 100% hardly goes to the club. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the window to get into the club, and then we're going to jump right back out. And the reason for that is because once you're in the window, it deloads the rest of Midtown, and you're not supposed to be able to get back out. So it assumes that if you jump out of the window that you've jumped into the club, because you're not supposed to be able to make that jump. But there's just a small, tiny input window where you can jump to that pipe that's still outside. And when you do, you get out, but everything's deloaded. And instead, jail is loaded. So jail's the next spot that we're supposed to go to. You're supposed to be captured and put in jail. But instead of being captured and put in jail, we're just going to fall into jail. And the nice thing about this is that because we are in jail in a way that we're not supposed to be, you're supposed to be put in jail and you get separated from B12 and you get separated from Clementine, and it's just the cat all alone. But we actually still have B12. B12 was never taken away from us. And the game doesn't know that, but B12 does still function normally. So we can use that to make things a little bit faster. Unfortunately, because we're not supposed to have B12, the game assumes that we don't, and so we can't talk to any of the robots, because B12 has been the one translating their speech for us. But that's okay, we can get by with gestures. So we're going to go and grab the keys for Clementine to get her out of her cell. So we grab them and head back. And so now that we've given them to her, she can open the cell for herself. And this is where we can save a little bit of time, because you're not supposed to be able to talk to Clem here. But if you do, it breaks her out of her normal path and makes her just keep moving. So she's supposed to stop here for a bit. But if you talk to her, she keeps heading to the next door, instead of stopping and looking around. And this part can be a little tricky. Just the way that Clem is pathed, she's supposed to stop in certain places and keep moving and stuff like that. But it is possible for that to bug out. Luckily, there's some ways to kind of minimize it from happening. But there's still some work to do for us, for the community, in finding exactly what makes it bug out and also how to make it happen faster. Because it's possible for it to bug out, for Clem's path to just go so wrong that she gets soft locked. It's also possible for it to skip ahead so that you don't have to do certain things. So that's something we're still working on. But anyways, here's the cutscene where you see B12 down there. The game does not realize that you have B12 in a backpack and B12 down there. And so we get to watch this cutscene. And so this part is a little bit slow. This is the part that could be faster if we could figure out exactly what's going wrong with Clem's path. But now our goal is to free B12. We want to free B12, and we want to avoid getting shot by sentinels. And so this part can be a little bit tricky with all the sentinels, but I'm not going to say it's always a sure thing. The problem with the sentinels is that sometimes they can have just some unexpected behavior where you think you did everything right, but then one of them just gets perfectly stuck on you or something, that it, like, follows you around a corner and kills you in the middle of a cutscene or something. I have had that happen. But this has been good so far. No problems here. Not going to get murdered during the cutscene in this one. And then the cool thing about this cutscene, well, not only can the sentinels murder you during it, but you can move during it. And those sentinels can't see you. Those ones aren't the ones that can follow you during the cutscene. So they can't see you, and you can run to B12 and just grab him. You're supposed to have to, like, do all that sneaking around after the cutscene, but you can just run straight up to him and grab him. So now we've saved B12. And now that we have him back, Clem can talk to us again. And so we're going to break out of jail. And so here we want to knock over these bricks so that she'll break the window up there. And so this part is kind of like it's teamwork. We open some things, Clem opens other things, so that we can make our way out of jail. And so for this next part here, there's some sentinels that are patrolling the yard. And it wouldn't be safe for Clem to go out there because they would catch her. So we're going to distract them and get them locked in a little cage off to the side. The first one is just one, and then we're going to do another group that's two of them. And there we go. Now Clem can keep moving. And so now here's the second group of them. And these ones you can both get in at once and then run out through the other door, which is very nice. And now we have to wait for her to cross the yard again, which does take some time. And so now we're to the last part of jail. This is the last door that we need before we can be free. So we're gonna have to figure out how to open it. And so we are a cat. We can scratch things, and we're gonna use that scratching ability to let Clem know about these keys over here. Now here we go. We can use the lever to open that final door. Unfortunately, though, that door is alarmed, and so now everybody knows that somebody's escaping from jail. So we're gonna have to get out fast. And part of that, just for speedrunning purposes, part of that is to get on the truck extra fast. There's a way to get to the truck early and get on it before you have to run into the tunnel. Oh, unless you get caught on that cone there. And so then you have to run down the tunnel a little bit. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. And now this cutscene happens. Which is not one of the skippable cutscenes. So we're going to watch as we drive through town on a chase. And so Clementine knows that... One sec. Sorry. Clementine knows that the Sentinels are just going to keep following, and she doesn't want them to stop the whole operation. So she decides that she's going to lead them away, while the cat goes to the control room and accomplishes her goal. So she gives us the battery and the keys to the subway, and she tells us to go while she distracts them. And so we gotta put the battery in. And then we gotta go turn on the subway, and then we're gonna ride the subway to the control room. And there is something a little funny that happens when the cat is on something that moves. Because the cat's tail has physics separate from the cat's body. And so when the cat's moving, the tail will move behind the cat. But if the cat is on something that's moving, and moving like in a different direction, the tail will still move relative to which way the cat's going. So when you're on the subway and the cat's moving this way, the tail will be going like perfectly horizontal beside the cat, which is funny to see. It also happens on the raft in sewers. And so you'll probably see it. It's a little dark right now, but when it gets light again, for just a second, you'll be able to see the tail going sideways. There it is. Now we're going to run out really fast. And so one trick that you can do on these subway rails is called zoomies. If you rub up against the rail and you're pretty much perfectly parallel to it, you will get a speed boost. And then the next trick that's going to happen here is called catrousel. Because you're going to use this little box robot as like a kind of a carousel to spin yourself through the door. You're supposed to do a puzzle to open the door, but instead we're just going to clip through it. But you gotta push it into the door. It doesn't want to go in the door, but it does work. And so once you've done that, jump up, spin around, and you're through. And now here's the final cutscene skip. The trigger is that yellow area right there. There we go. You want to make sure you get two of the beeps, otherwise it means you probably didn't get it. And so now we're in the control room. And this is the control room that oversees the entire city. It's called the control room because it is the controls for everything that's in the walled city. And if you see the signs around, this is Walled City 99, which means there's other walled cities. I don't know if 99 is the last one or if there's even more than that, but that's a lot of walled cities. And so we're in the control room for the whole city, and you'll notice it's empty, except for some robots. There's, what we're doing right here is we're turning on these consoles so that B12 can take control of things from the other one. That's what this is, which can be a bit of a pain sometimes. But the only inhabitants up here are robots that are still programmed to be helpers. The robots in the rest of the city aren't supposed to be conscious. They were originally helpers to the humans, but over time they gained consciousness somehow, and that's never fully explained. But the robots up here haven't gained consciousness. They're still following their original programming and keeping this place spotless, which is why it's so clean up here and not clean down in the city. But all the humans are gone from up here too. And what you'll learn more if you play the game is there was a plague that took over the humans, and the humans in the control room thought that it wouldn't touch them. They were happy to just do nothing and let everybody down in the city suffer, but it eventually did reach them, and they were not prepared for it. And so the thing that we're doing now, again, we're a cat. What do we know how to do? We know how to break stuff. So the way that this works is you break the wires while B12 hacks the computers so that you can break into the controls for the city. And I did move that during that cutscene right there to get to the next one a little bit faster, which is a nice thing, and I talked about it earlier. There's a few different cutscenes you can move during. It's a little time save. And so this is the last one. And B12 is not doing so good after all of these. But we're going to pick him up and bring him over to the central control area. And he's going to say goodbye to us now. He knows that this will be more than his circuits can take. And so he says goodbye, and he wants to open the city. This has been his goal, was to open the city. Because he remembers what it was like before, unlike a lot of the robots. And so this is his sacrifice, to open the city for everybody else. And this is a really sad cutscene. I don't know though, he's a robot. I feel like you can repair something like that. So maybe there's hope. I don't know. Maybe there will be a sequel. Maybe there won't. DLC? Who knows? But now this is the cutscene where the whole city ceiling peels back. Which is really cool, actually. And so now that the city is open, sunlight can get in, and sunlight actually destroys the Zerks, because that weapon that we were using on them earlier, the defluxer with the purple light, that's also ultraviolet light. So this is just a lot more ultraviolet light, and it will clear the city of the Zerks, finally. And here's Clementine, and she's saved just in time. The sunlight also deactivates the Sentinels, so now she is doing A-okay. Nothing is chasing her anymore. And so now, the last thing is to, if you press the D-pad during this fade-in, you can get up a little bit early. And so, this is the last part of the run. We have to get out of the city. And so the doors are going to open for us, and the time will stop when we reach the top of the stairs and the cutscene starts. And it's not the first stairs, it's the second stairs, so that'll be just a second. I will let you know, but it does go on for a while. It's not an immediate thing, so it's this next set of stairs. I am still, or not even this next set of stairs, sorry, the third set of stairs. I'm still walking, still moving. I just can't run anymore. And so time will stop at the top here. time. And so that's an any percent unrestricted run of Stray. But like I said, there's some pros and cons to running this versus running 100%. You get to see more glitches and stuff in 100%. You get to see fewer spoiler cutscenes in this one. But either one, I'd be really happy to run, or even, run one with an incentive to run the other. I think that this is a really fun run, and of course it's catJAM. Everybody loves catJAM. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.